Hi, everyone. Hello, welcome. My name is Makita Ellis, and I am one of the Assistant Directors of Admissions here at Bloomsburg University. Today, we have a departmental deep dive into American Sign Language, ASL. So I'm super excited today because we have a wonderful, outstanding group of individuals here joining us to give their infinite wisdom about the major as well as their personal experiences while in this major and other opportunities available for students that do go through American Sign Language. Now, before I introduce everybody and let them go around and introduce themselves, just so you know, you are able to go back and view this video so you can learn more about ASL if you're unable to stay. But if you are able to join us and you just want to go back and review, please feel free to go to our admissions tab, go to visit and connect, and you should be able to find this video. It will be recorded. Now let's get started. Again, we have a great, exciting panel with us today. I'm going to start with Dr. Jessica Bentley Sussman, and she is going to go around and introduce herself.
Hello, welcome to this presentation. We're excited to have you here or watching us later on. I'm Dr. Bentley Sussman. I'm the program coordinator and associate professor here at Bloomsburg University, and I'm also an alumni from this program. So I've been through the program as a student. I've seen a lot of changes. I've made a lot of changes with this program, and I've been here working at the university since 2006.
Perfect, thank you. And Bridget Klein, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, my name is Bridget Klein. Here's my sign name. And I teach, I've almost been teaching 10 years here at the university. Yeah, and I've been working with Dr. Bentley Sussman for quite a while. And, we've been working together, made this program as strong as it is right now.
Great, thank you for joining us. And we have two of our alumni from Bloomsburg University American Sign Language program. And we are going to first start with Alexa, and she's going to introduce herself and tell you a little bit more about who she is.
Hi, my name is Alexa Cantalupo. I am a graduate of 2016 from Bloomsburg from the interpreter training program. Right now, I am currently working as a freelance sign language interpreter, and I'm also doing video relay service interpreting as well. Right now, I am living in New Jersey, and that's pretty much it.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Gabby.
All right, so my name is Gabrielle Reyes, but my name is really Gabby. I graduated in the year 2020 last year. I am from Yonkers, New York, a little bit outside of the city-ish. And right now I am a freelance interpreter as well as an employed interpreter. I think that's it. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. So we are going to get started with our presentation now. Just please keep in mind, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to put them in the comment section below, and we will be sure to answer them accordingly. Now, I will turn it over to Dr. Bentley Sussman.
Wonderful, thank you. So I am going to share my presentation. All right. So tonight we are going to talk about the ASL to English interpreting program. We're really excited to have you guys here. Ms. Klein and I will be talking a little bit about what the program is about. Our alumni will feel free to jump in and add anything if they would like to our presentation.
All right. Make sure it was truly my turn, and it is. Wonderful. So in the program, you will learn ASL every year that you're here, freshman up to senior. ASL 1 and 2 will be introductory. Then you're going to get deeper into the language in ASL 3 and 4. And we'll discuss opinions and experience. And then we're really going to dig deep into the language and discuss medical issues and the vocabulary will get more dense. So ASL 1 through 6 is the language portion that you will be taking. ASL literature will be analyzing the language and looking at the American Sign Language literacy and playing with the language. So you need to first understand the language thoroughly before you can discuss the literature portion. Then the visual gestural communication will be the body language and the movements with the language, using classifiers and utilizing space. And we're really going to delve deep into the language with visual gestural communication as well. And then I'm going to let Dr. Bentley Sassaman take over for the interpreting portion.
So we have interpreting courses, and I've just highlighted a few here, but we have interpreting courses such as Introduction to Interpreting, where we talk about the theory and the practice. And then we move ourselves up as we go through the program into more dense or intense or interesting or hands-on type of work, or all of the above, I think. And we also then have some electives in our major. So I'd like to just point out a few classes for you that I wanted to highlight. Not many programs offer a class specifically on deaf-blind interpreting. So this is to learn how to work with people who are both deaf and blind. And there is a wide range of this. They could be low vision and hard of hearing. They could be completely deaf, completely blind, etc. And so we're one of the few programs that offers a full course on learning how to work with deaf-blind populations. So this is something that makes our program a little bit more unique in that you have the option to take this course to learn how to work with deaf-blind individuals. It's not just about interpreting, but it's about guiding. It's about what we do when we work with them, understanding blindness, understanding deafness, understanding how these dual sensory disabilities happen, and what we do as interpreters when we're working with them. We also offer an elective on educational interpreting. So if you're interested in working in the K-12 environment, we do have a class that prepares you to be an educational interpreter as well. A class that's required for our program is Topics in Interpreting, and I wanted to highlight this because it parallels ASL 6. Ms. Klein was talking about how in ASL 6 we get into more of that jargon-specific language with medical, mental health, different types of modules based on topics that could come up as an interpreter. Topics in Interpreting then pairs with that, where we talk about, as an interpreter, how do I handle the situation? What does this environment require of me? And we spend time talking about medical, mental health, legal, vocational rehabilitation, video relay service interpreting, etc. And then something else with our program is we have a 6-credit practicum. On this practicum, our students will be split into 2 different settings, one focusing on educational interpreting and one focusing on the community during the time that they're on their practicum, so they can get experience in both of those environments.
All right. So now we're going to talk about how to be a good interpreting student. Well, this means that we are going to be teaching you ASL in your classes, plus your interpreting classes. You'll have both of those. You will have the skill that you will learn in the classroom. But you also need to know how to take critique and feedback and incorporate it into what you put out. And you need the motivation, you need the grit to do it. And there will be a lot of bumps along the road, and just keep persevering while you go through the program, and you will graduate. And when you do, you will be richly rewarded. Absolutely you will. But you need to have the knowledge of being bilingual. You need to know English, because you'll be putting sign language into spoken English. You also need to know the different registers, the conversational up to platform interpreting that will be done. So spoken English plus American Sign Language, conversational right up to platform, and everything in between, putting it out into sign language mode. You also need to learn time management skills. You need to associate with the deaf community and see how the signs are produced, and practice the interpreting and practice your skills. It takes time to get that balance to know both English well as American Sign Language. So you will see a lot of feedback you will get from us, and you will learn a lot from this feedback. And then you will notice what you're doing and be able to make those changes quickly to produce what is needed. And this program focuses on people. So you're working with a person, whether that person knows sign language or not. There are hearing people and deaf people who need to communicate with each other, and you are that bridge. So there's work that you are able to do. Sometimes people think they can work all day long, but however, it will take a lot of work to be a really good team player.
I wanted to add something quickly.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
please do. Please go ahead.
So she was talking about being able to take in feedback and just learning. It's hard to go ahead and just accept that you have flaws. It's hard to do that right off the bat. And so you do develop how to accept and then take it in and then change, within yourself, and then you get better. And that's the point of it, is so you can get better. And I think it's good that we have this skill to start on as a student, because you continue to take in feedback even outside of the classes. Once I graduated, I didn't stop taking in the feedback. I continue to work on myself and take workshops, and that's really something that I'm happy that is engraved in us as a student, and it continues on in the career. So I just wanted to put that out there.
And I actually did have a question. So I know what it means to be a good student, the importance of that, but I'm kind of wondering, for a student that's entering into the American Sign Language program, do they need to have any type of knowledge in advance before coming in, or is this something that they're going to just all learn, once they enter into the program? Because I know there might be some students out there that are like, oh, do I need to take classes in American Sign Language now before I go and get started? Will this help me? Or do you recommend that they not take those classes necessarily immediately and just wait until they enter into the program? This would kind of identify with both freshmen and transfers.
I can begin to answer this question. Now, as a professor of the language, my preference is to have students who come here at the very beginning to Bloomsburg University and learn here. There's a lot of skills that can be learned, and if you start from scratch, then you are a blank slate, and that is a perfect time to start learning. You learn the rules of the language, linguistics, the grammar, the structure from the very beginning. We will teach that to you. But if you're learning from somewhere else, it's hard to unlearn something you have learned and change it. I think the students who are learning it from scratch here are the lucky ones. If you can learn from somewhere else, that's okay. We'll teach you, but I think you will learn better if you start from scratch here.
And we have students who transfer in, and they've taken some ASL before at their other college. Oftentimes, students who transfer in will transfer in one level below where they were at their other college to here in our program. So our program is pretty rigorous with our ASL requirements. And we've just noticed that when students transfer in, it's typically one level below. So I just want to make that known for transfer students who come in who maybe have taken ASL 1, 2, 3. When they transfer in here, they might find out that they're starting at 3, even though they've already taken 3 at their other college. And it's just because that's typically what we see with our transfer students. And my son would like to come in to give me a hug.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
Oh, and I do want to add one more thing to your comment, if you wouldn't mind.
Please.
And you are correct as far as transfer students go, but I do want to clarify what I mean is that we are strict, But we are producing good quality interpreters. That's what we want, because the students who graduate from the program will be qualified and they will have the skills to know the language fluently and sign clearly, and then deaf people will understand them and hearing people understand the English. We want them to have the entire package.
Thank you.
Great. As far as clubs and organizations go, there are 4 of them in our program. I'm going to talk about the first one, and Dr. Bentley Sassman will take it away for the next 3. The first one is Signify, and this is a club for students to get together and learn and practice sign language. It's a very social club, and it's just for practice, meeting other people, different students, freshmen, the whole way up till senior year. Hand it over to Dr. Bentley Sassman now.
The other 3 clubs that we have the Interpreter Club. So the Interpreter Club focuses on providing skill development workshops. So for example, the other year, we had a medical interpreter come in, and she did a general interpreting workshop, just general, what is medical interpreting? My dog's in now. General medical interpreting, what is that like? And then there was a break, and then in the afternoon, she did more of a hands-on, what is medical interpreting for juniors and seniors to take. So we try to have these different workshops to build skill development for our students, and that then starts with the freshmen and sophomores learning just more general basic skills, but then as they go up to the juniors and seniors, they then get more of that hands-on practice with those interpreting skills. Image is a performance-based club where they put signs to songs or skits, and they've performed in Pennsylvania, but they performed in other states. So they've gone to Pittsburgh. There's a big sign-a-thon event in Pittsburgh. They've performed out in Pittsburgh. They've gone to Long Island to perform. Both Alexa and Gabby were involved in Image as well. And that's something where we get contacts from schools that maybe have one deaf student and they would like to have some kind of deaf awareness event for the whole school, and they invite Image to come along and do a performance and a little talk. So that's something that we're really proud of with our interpreting program. Image is the only club that is audition based. So Signify Interp Club, you can get in, anytime, but Image is a audition based club. And then the final club is ASL Immersion Club. During the senior year, students get to go to a bed and breakfast. We rent out the full place, and we have deaf community members come in, the faculty is there, and it is a full ASL weekend where the students are signing with one another, and we do some mock interpreting as well in a very safe environment that is no grade attached to it, so students can try different things, but we have that. And so the ASL Immersion Club is a big fundraising club for that event that comes up, because again, we rent out a whole bed and breakfast. It does cost money to do that. So the students fundraise for that event.
Lex, did you want to say something?
No, I was just gonna say that ASL Immersion Weekend was probably one of the best weekends of my entire college career. We had such a blast. It was so awesome. I remember literally hanging out with Miss Klein until like 3 o'clock in the morning. We were just hanging out, everyone talking, and we had to be up the next morning at like 8:30 for mock interpreting, but we didn't care because we just were able to hang out with one another, play fun games, draw on each other's faces. Like it was such an awesome experience, and to be able to be with everybody and just like not worry about, amazing memory. It really was. And just not like leaving life like on pause and just like being in the moment, being present. I don't think I talked to my parents the entire weekend. I was barely on my phone. I don't even think I needed to charge it because I was just like so in the moment. It was awesome. It was a really great experience.
That's fantastic. Good to hear it.
So just a little bit more about some of the professional experiences that we provide for you. As a freshman, when you come into our program, you start doing field observations of certified interpreters working out in the field. And we talk more about that when you come in. There's certain requirements for that. We go through all of that together your freshman year. But right away, we're getting you out there. You're doing observations. You're going to deaf events. You're interacting with the deaf community, etc. We have the 6-credit practicum, which I talked about just briefly earlier. And this is actually where you're going to be doing the interpreting under the supervision of a certified interpreter or an educational interpreter. So they will be watching you. They will be providing you feedback. They will be providing you support. So you're in a supported, mentored environment for your practicum. Something else that the interpreting club does, which I was holding for this slide, is every other year on even years, we have a biennial interpreter club conference. This interpreter club conference is a really big deal because our students plan it, they set it up, they do everything for this conference. And the conference includes different trainings throughout the day for student level to professional level interpreters. And then in the evening, there's a performer, deaf performer, who comes in. And then the next day, there are more workshops. We also have an agency fair where we invite agencies to come in from Pennsylvania, but we also invite other states to come in where students can go up and talk and network with agencies. And it's just a great time for alumni, students to meet and to learn through this conference, networking, interacting. It's just a great opportunity, and the students run it themselves. I guide them along, but they do the hard work. And it turns out really wonderful. We have alumni, professional interpreters who don't have anything to do with Bloomsburg, didn't graduate, they come in. Students from other colleges come, people from the deaf community also come to the event. So it's a big deal for our students, and we're very proud of it. We also have mentoring of underclassmen students. So when our students come in as freshmen, we are pairing them with a junior who can then help guide them along their path. They can be someone to ask questions to get advice from, to help them study, prepare for exams, etc. So that is something else that we provide our students, and that mentor then follows them from the freshman year to the sophomore year when the mentor is a senior. So they follow for 2 years. So it's nice to have that connection with somebody who's an upperclassman who's been through it, who knows what you're going through. Maybe when you get your first homework and you have all this feedback, and you're like, oh my gosh, that mentor can then help you and guide you through what to do with it and how to improve. Another exciting event that we have is the Bloomsburg Fair. The Bloomsburg Fair is a town fair, but it draws around 400,000 people during the week. So it's quite large. And at the fair, our students, when they're seniors, get to interpret for different shows. So we have the free stage where they interpret for shows like Beatles cover band, medley Americana songs, all different types of things. But then we have the grandstand, which our students get to interpret for too. And that includes more of the big name acts that come in and perform. Melissa Etheridge was there a couple of years ago. I don't even remember, but there was tons of different. Do you guys remember who you interpreted for, Alexa?
So I interpreted for King and Country and also Skillet. So they are 2 mainstream Christian bands. And when I tell you the Bloomsburg Fair was just amazing. I think I was there almost every single day with the exception of Wednesday. I took off that one day because I was like, maybe I need some rest. But when I tell you, any opportunity that comes your way when you enter the program, just take it. And even if you're scared and you think to yourself, oh, I'm not a performer, you don't need to be a performer. Like, I have dance experience and I love being on stage, but that just helped me help my classmates, face their fears. And some of them were on stage for the first time. And it was so liberating. It was just amazing to be able to work with certified mentors at the same time and be able to gain this experience. It was awesome.
I 100% miss the Bloomsburg Fair. Like, oh my God. But I didn't do a grandstand, but I know on my year, there was a few actually like famous, I forgot who it was. I'm not a country person. So that's why I'm not remembering these names. But I know that a lot of people were freaking out and wanting these people. And I'm like, you know,
A lot of country.
it was, but I'm not a country person, but it was such a great time. And I think that was really something I will never forget. I mean, like that, like you said, that whole week. Also, you're not just there for you, you're supporting your classmates as well. Like, it was just really a great time. And that definitely started off the year, senior year, you know,
Just gonna say that. Yep.
yeah, it started off the senior year, and then you actually feel like, oh my God, this is it. Like, I'm starting it, and I feel like an actual interpreter. Like, it was a really nice time. Yeah.
I agree.
Now, just so you know, for those of you who are interested in seeing our American Sign Language students interpret at this fair, it's in 100 days, 12 hours, and 27 minutes. So I just want to make sure that you come to Bloomsburg and check it out so that you can see what our students are doing. You know, learn
I
more.
remember coming back to visit Gabby when she was
Yeah.
I go every year, so I love it. It's amazing, and just be able to root everybody on. It's just like,
Yeah.
September 24th.
I can't wait.
And then some other things we do are mock interpreting of real life scenarios. We have developed a partnership with the nursing program. And so our students actually go into a simulated nursing room where it looks like a doctor's office, and a nursing student then we bring in a deaf quote unquote patient, and the nursing student then interacts with the patient and the students interpret for it. And they love that real world feeling because they're in what looks like an examination room. So they get that experience. So we have some mock interpreting of real life scenarios with our students too. So just a couple of our career paths. This is not exhaustive, but we've listed probably some of the most popular. In community interpreting, there's a lot you can do. You can do medical, you can do business, you can do vocational rehabilitation, government work, legal. There's a lot of different things you can do in the community, theatrical, etc. So community interpreting means that you are a contractor in most cases. Sometimes you're a staff interpreter for an agency, and you go from assignment to assignment, and an agency will contact you and they'll say, hey, can you go do this job at this date at this time? And if you can, yes, and then you go and you interpret. So with community interpreting, there's something new every day. You could be going to all different types of assignments throughout the day. Throughout the day, you can be going to different assignments. I remember one day I worked for 3 different agencies in one day because I had different assignments that different people hired me for. So I'm going from one place to another place to another place, and just remembering, you know, which agency am I working for? So if they ask me for a business card, I can give them the right one. But that's just something that you'll experience as a community interpreter. So if you like variety, community interpreting is great for that. Then there's educational interpreting, so working in elementary, middle school, high school, vocational, VOTEC school. Those are all examples of educational interpreting. And this is where you're going to the same school every day. You're working with, you know, a couple students, maybe one, maybe a few students within the system. And you have a set schedule, you know where you're going. So people who like more of that set schedule, educational interpreting might be something more geared towards you, but then you have the summers off where you can do community. So you can get the best of both worlds when you do educational. Video relay service is another type of interpreting. And this is how deaf people make phone calls. So they call, it looks like a computer with a webcam, and they call into a center, and an interpreter pops up on the screen, and they connect to the hearing person and they interpret the phone conversation. The deaf person sees the interpreter signing, the hearing person hears the interpreter speaking, and that communication goes on. You never know what's going to come up on the phone call. It could be something as simple as getting a prescription refill, calling a family member, or it could be something more complex, like they're connecting to a teleconference, and you're going to be interpreting for a conference, and you call a team over to work with you. But there's all different types of work, and Video relay service, again, you can pick your hours that you want to work, but within that time frame, you could be interpreting for people in Massachusetts, California, Colorado, Florida, all over the United States. So it's pretty exciting. And then post-secondary interpreting is working at a college, a community college, a university, maybe a trade school after graduation. You could be interpreting for deaf people who are taking classes to further their career.
Okay, because I want to actually chime in right there, because I was hoping that people would notice and observe we've got two very important individuals here who are actually doing the post-secondary interpreting right now for us, and I'm actually going to have them quickly introduce themselves because they are an integral part of what is actually happening even today, and also what happens at our campus day to day. So I'm going to have Becky, can you introduce yourself first?
Sure. Hi, my name is Becky Kovach, and I'm one of the interpreters here at Bloomsburg University.
And Tess.
Yeah, I am Tess Fassi. I do support the staff interpreters here on campus. I'm also the director of University Disability Services.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm glad we have you joining us today, because that just shows the different career paths and opportunities available for students. But I actually wanted to ask this, as far as careers and employment, how quickly do students out of American Sign Language find employment? Is it something that is fairly easy for students to find, especially with the support of faculty like you both, or is there a challenge? Do students typically try to progress to a master's, further education? What do they do usually?
So that's actually a great question. I actually just conducted a survey of alumni, and I don't have that data up in front of me, but I actually was just looking at that data that asks that question yesterday. So I don't remember all the numbers off the top of my head, but the majority of our students get placed within 0 to 3 months of graduating. And I don't remember the exact percentage, but it was fairly high, that's where most students then get work soon after graduation. Okay. And the thing about our program is when you're doing your observations freshman and sophomore year, you're making connections with interpreters. When you're on your practicum, you're making connections with interpreters. And through those connections, you then get connected to an agency or several agencies or a school district. And then that helps you find the job that you've landed. And I have to say, being involved, if I can just say for myself, being involved got me a lot of my jobs. So I volunteered, I had my first job out of college. And then over the summer, I volunteered, it was an educational job. And then over the summer, I volunteered at an ASL camp. And it was for kids who had deaf parents or a deaf sibling so that they could learn sign language to better communicate with their parents or sibling. And through that, I met another interpreter who then recommended me to hire or to apply to a different educational job. And so through her, I then made connections and got this other job. And then through other people I knew from volunteering and being in the community, I made connections to other things. And that's actually how I ended up back at Bloomsburg teaching, was just through connections that I've made. So those connections that you make as a freshman are really important because they can then help you land a career as you move forward with your practicum. And I'm gonna let Alexa and Gabby talk about that if that's all right.
Okay, so I'll start off. So especially with the pandemic just happening, that was my class. It was my class where we got hit. And so the pandemic kind of pushed our practicum. And so it was crazy because I had a set in stone agency that I was going to work with, and then they just dropped me the week before practicum actually start. And I was like, okay, I can sit and cry and feel bad for myself, or I can call everyone that I can find in like 2 hours and see what I can get. And I ended up finding an agency who took me in, and that agency at the end, really by the end of the practicum, I finished my hours, and that was like a surprise in itself because, you know, I didn't have an agency before and now I do, and I didn't think I was going to finish the hours, and then I did. And then even at the end, the agency was like, all right, are you done yet? Because we need to put you through our process so you can work for us already. Like because of that connection, I had that first job. And then because I was calling so many people in the beginning of it, everyone got back to me and it was like, hey, you want to work for us? Or I just literally bugged everyone. And then working out into the field, people like Dr. Bentley Sassman had said, you just get those connections, meeting people. I really recommend just, you know, going out there and just trying your best to try to figure out who to talk to and, oh, where can I get that contact, and just go out and do it. Because if you don't, like, it's just, you might not get those connections or opportunities. And definitely a lot of opportunities have come my way because of that. So for sure. And I also wanted to mention that I, throughout all 4 years of college and in the program, was like, no education work, like that period. And then the first job I got was to be a designated interpreter for like a child in elementary school. And I'm like, well, and I love it. Like I absolutely love it. And it's just like a shocker, but you really don't know what you're going to get, or what you feel is best, and until you actually go out and do it. So definitely love it.
Alexa.
You're done. You did it. You survived.
Yeah, we survived.
So I completed my practicum, I can't believe, 5 years ago. And when I was a senior, I struggled with finding a mentor back home because my goal was just to move back home and just be with my family in New Jersey. And I wound up founding, I can't even speak, I'm so sorry. I found one interpreter that was willing to work with me. She actually was the same interpreter that I learned sign language from in 3rd grade. So it was really cool. It was a really humbling, bittersweet experience. I was with her for about 2 months. And I knew that it wasn't going to be enough hours. And talk about making connections. During my time at Bloomsburg, I became very friendly with some of the staff interpreters at Bloomsburg, 2 of which that are interpreting right now. And when push came to shove, I met up with Tess and I said, Tess, how would you like to be my mentor? And she thought about it long and hard, and she realized it was the best thing she could have ever done was work with me. Just kidding. Just kidding. She was by far one of the best mentors I could have ever had. And I'm not just saying this because she's right here on the screen, but I wouldn't be the interpreter I am today without her and working with her. My interpreting experience during my practicum, I did it at Bloomsburg after I left home in New Jersey, moved back to Pennsylvania, and I fulfilled the rest of my requirements at Bloomsburg. And I was able to work with the summer program with the students there. And when I tell you, I think I interpreted every single topic you could ever imagine was just thrown my way. And you have no choice but to just do it. It doesn't matter if you're uncomfortable. It doesn't matter what's going on. Your mentor is there to be there for you and support you, but they're also there to be like, come on, you can do it. Like, nope, stay up there. Nope, you feel like you're sinking, but they're there just supporting you and getting you through it 100% of the way. So I loved my practicum. My practicum was an amazing experience. Obviously, it was pre-COVID, and I know times have been very challenging recently, but looking back at my practicum, I can definitely say I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for my mentors that I worked with throughout my practicum, Becky being one of them as well. I was actually able to work with her during the Knoebels Deaf Awareness Day. That's another experience that you get to have as an interpreting student your senior year. You can come back if you want to, you volunteer, and you can work with some of the interpreters volunteer as well. And you get to do a lot of the shows there, whether it's a magician, there's different bands. and it's an awesome experience. So I was able to work with more interpreters there and get great feedback. And I wanted to say this before, but I'll say it now. Feedback is probably one of the most important, just so important. And it's not about you. The work, it's your work and you are separate. And to be able to really succeed as an interpreter, I feel you need to be able to take the feedback and run with it. Take any opportunity that you can to get feedback and do it 1,000 times. So that was my little spiel.
Thank you, ladies. All right. I'll turn it over to Ms. Klein.
Okay. Some of the highlights that we wanted to emphasize about our program is it was so nice to hear about Gabby and Alexa's experiences. They did a great job highlighting what our program offers them, their skill development, how impressed they were with their program and their degree here. It's excellent to hear from the alumni who have graduated and been successful in the field and famous in the field. Famous and successful. The signs are similar, but yes. So it's great to see how successful they've been. But I do want to highlight some other things about the program. We have specific tutors for students in the major. The tutors are deaf. They are native signers, so they know the language, the ins and outs. They tutor on structure and grammar and linguistics and vocabulary building to help you become more native-like in your signing ability. We want to create a really supportive cohort when you come as freshmen. So we have what are considered ASL learning communities, where you would live with your cohort. Of course, we have supportive alumni. They will support you from day one into your career. We were recently accredited by the Commission on Collegiate Interpreter Education. 3 years ago, we received this distinguished accreditation from CCIE. And that is really important and noteworthy about our program, is that we are actually an accredited program by the CCIE. In addition, the faculty who will be instructing your interpreting courses are certified interpreters themselves. Also, the instructors or the faculty members teaching your language courses are ASL/TA certified, which are American Sign Language Teacher Association certification, known as the ASL/TA. So know that you will have the best instructors in both your interpreting coursework as well as your language coursework. Is there anything you would like to add?
I think you've covered it. And so our alumni, once they graduate, they can go anywhere to work. So these are just a couple places where we know we have alumni living. I'm sure I'm forgetting of some. California is one I'm missing. Okay, just thought of that one now. And Idaho, just thought of the second one. So we have interpreting alumni all over the United States. So your degree can literally take you anywhere. We have 2 in Hawaii that I can think of off the top of my head. So interpreting can take you anywhere you want to go in the United States.
Okay, and then I'm going to talk about the job prospects. Really, you can interpret anywhere if you are qualified. And to be a qualified interpreter means that you are fluent in both English and American Sign Language. It doesn't mean that you can just sign some of the vocabulary. It means that you understand the content, you understand vernacular, you understand particular vocabulary specific to settings. So for instance, for a heart attack, do you know the actual medical terminology for a heart attack? And do you know how to communicate that in both English and American Sign Language? So content is important to be a qualified interpreter. Certification is also important, which is granted through the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf, also known as RID. That is for national certification. To be qualified to work in a K through 12 educational setting, you will need the Educational Interpreter Performance Assessment, the EIPA. So if you are a qualified interpreter or you work to be a qualified interpreter, you can work anywhere in the United States. On average, you will earn a salary of $47,190. But of course, that is based on experience, and the more experience you have, the more money you can potentially earn. In Pennsylvania, that mean salary is $53,040. So that is a great opportunity for income. In terms of job numbers nationally, there are a lot of interpreters. In Pennsylvania, there's over 1,000. I don't need to read all these numbers to you. They are available to you on the slide. So I'll give you an opportunity to see salaries, job numbers, and projected growth.
Right. It just shows that there's growth and it's a good pay. So that is the end of our presentation. I know that we went a long time, longer than what we were supposed to, but there were a lot of interjection of questions and alumni discussions. So it wasn't, hopefully it wasn't too boring. Hopefully you found it interesting if you guys were watching it.
Well, you know, I actually had one quick question before we kind of go to our alumni panel and ask some questions of our alum. Minoring in American Sign Language, is that something you see a lot of from students coming into BU who are not necessarily ready to major in American Sign Language? And kind of what are some of the majors that you see paired with minoring?
So we
and either one of you can answer.
Yeah, we have a lot of minors that take ASL as a minor. A lot of them are deaf education majors, special education majors as well. We have audiology and speech pathology students that minor in interpreting. But if I could put a plug in for some specific fields that we really need deaf or signing professionals in, would be the field of psychology and psychiatry, counseling. There really needs to be more professionals who can sign so deaf people can have direct communication to a therapist or counselor. So that's something that if anybody's interested in majoring in psychology and minoring in ASL, we would love to have you in the minor.
Perfect, thank you. That helps a lot, thank you. Okay, so this is also the second exciting part because the first part was great. We are going to have some of our alum answer questions, as well as our faculty, unbeknownst to them, answer questions as well, because you are all a part of this. And we're going to kind of learn a little bit more as to why you selected ASL and what it means to you being at BU. Now, first question I actually have that is really, to me, directed to everybody here. First off, how did you get into this major? Like, why American Sign Language? What made you select this as a career path and field? Because I think, you know, it takes some thought process into selecting this as a major, and it doesn't just come to everybody. But what made you select this? Let's start with Gabby.
Yeah, so I took, sorry, do I hear myself? Okay, sorry. I took sign language in high school. And so I definitely was one of those students who came into Bloomsburg like, I know sign language. Don't teach me nothing. I'm going to be honest. But like Ms. Klein was saying, it's just like, you know, kind of bad habits. If you learn bad habits that you got to get rid of, and you learn, like I took all 4 years of sign language in high school, and then I went my first year, I felt like I learned so much more in that 1 year than the 4 years in high school, you know? But I took it in high school, and I was just fascinated by it. And at that time, I was like, "Ooh, it's so nice! Like, I think I just want to be an interpreter. It's so cool." Now, or when I was when I took it up as the language, as the major, oh my God, I can't speak. When I took it as the major, I realized that I needed to be a supportive ally to the deaf community. And that is why I wanted to be an interpreter. You know, I needed to facilitate what is being said. And it was just important to me to be an interpreter. So that's how I got into sign language. I don't know if there was any other question. Was there another question? Oh, about Bloomsburg, of what it means to me?
Yeah. Well, no, you pretty much answered it in a nutshell.
Okay. I didn't know if there was like a part 2.
No, you got it. Alexa.
Oh, that was funny. Oh man. Oh, okay, get it together. All right, cool. So I actually I chose to major in interpreting because when I was in 3rd grade, I had 3 deaf students in my class, and no one was talking to them. It was the first day. I feel like this is one of like my first memories that I ever had, or my mom and dad just talk about it all the time. So I feel like that's why I remember it. And I remember going right up to them, trying to talk to them, and the interpreter interpreting for me. And I just remember sitting at their table. I completed their 4th little square. Our tables were like, 4 desks together, and I completed that fourth seat, and we just became best friends. I was watching the interpreter the entire time and just picked up sign language from watching her, and she would also teach sign language on Fridays, and I just became fascinated. We became such great friends. I actually wound up being in every single one of their classes throughout elementary and middle school. It just happened that way, I think.
Wow.
It actually came to a point where in elementary school, my teacher, I think it was 5th grade, called my mom and said, "I really think you need to take Alexa to get her hearing checked because she doesn't answer me unless I talk to her through the interpreter." I can't. So I learned sign language growing up, but that wasn't just, oh, I can be an interpreter because I learned sign language. Not by any means at all. You have to go through an interpreter training program, and that's exactly what I did. I started off here in New Jersey at my local ITP interpreter training program. I did that for 3 years, and then I did transfer to Bloomsburg, where that's when I really learned the nitty-gritty of what it really takes to become an interpreter, and it was the best decision that I could have made. And I shopped around. I can't even tell you how many colleges I went to, not even just on the East Coast. I shopped around, and lo and behold, Bloomsburg's just the best.
We're fortunate to have you.
Thank you.
So I'm kind of curious with our faculty, Ms. Klein, what made you select American Sign Language?
I use ASL every day because I have been deaf my entire life.
Why a career in teaching ASL?
Yes, why teaching?
Oh, why did I become a teacher? Okay. I want to clarify something about some statistics. If we have a family let me clarify that interpretation. For every 4 families that have a deaf member, only 1 of those 4 families will learn sign language. So the point of that statistics is that 3/4 of those family units, those children, are left without the ability to communicate with their family. They can only communicate superficially through gesturing or home signs. So I want deaf children to have access to qualified interpreters so that they can develop into successful contributing members of society and be successful. Language deprivation is a huge concern in the deaf community, and it starts with these families not having access to communicate with their children and their children not having access to communicate with their family. So qualified interpreters are a key to helping remedy the epidemic of language deprivation in deaf culture. And so encouraging interpreters to be fluent and qualified to help make deaf individuals have greater access to communication and be successful.
Thank you. Dr. Bentley Sussman, why BU? What made you, I know you touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but kind of tell us your story and why you selected ASL.
So I had a deaf friend growing up. I remember a deaf boy came up to me one day at my church and he did some things and I was like, and so I knew the ABCs. I think in like 5th grade or elementary school at some point, they teach you the alphabet. So I knew ABCs. So I found that book. Amazingly, I had it. I was still, fairly young. So I still had that book. I found it and I went back through and I signed to him and he then would teach me signs. And so that is how I learned sign language. And then his father actually ended up working for my father. And in the summer we would work together. So he and I would work doing mailings for my dad, back in the day, people sent mail in the, through the post office. We would fold paper, put it in envelopes, seal the envelopes, put the labels on it, and get them all ready. And so he and I worked together. So I learned sign language from him. But when I graduated high school, I wanted to be a flight attendant. And I moved to Kentucky because my grandparents lived near the airport in Louisville and I wanted to work for Delta. Fun fact about me. But then I didn't know interpreting was a career because I never saw an interpreter. So then as time went on, my cousin applied to go to a college and that college catalog had interpreting as a degree. And so I applied, but they wouldn't accept me as in-state because I'd only lived in Kentucky for 8 months. So I came back to Pennsylvania and I looked at what colleges had interpreting and Bloomsburg had it and I applied. And without ever knowing what an interpreter was, just because I knew sign language. So it was pretty, it was just a great fit for me. And I fell in love with the campus, the academics. And afterwards I went to graduate school where I met Miss Klein. We were at Gallaudet together. Then after I graduated, I knew that Bloomsburg needed an interpreting teacher because the program was in moratorium. And I said, okay, let's give this a try, having no idea what I was getting myself into. And it worked out really well.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a very interesting story, actually. So Tess, what brought you into American Sign Language and being an interpreter?
In high school, we had to do volunteer hours to graduate in the honors program. So I did volunteer hours in a classroom with deaf children at an elementary school. So originally I wanted to be a teacher of the deaf. So I came to Bloomsburg for deaf education.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, and then I took the first class where we had to do lesson plans and decided I did not want to be a teacher. But I still liked working with the deaf community. So I changed majors and started majoring in interpreting.
Thank you. And Becky.
Who was your teacher though, Tess?
In the interpreting program? So I was...
Yeah, I think it was Dr. Bentley Sassman, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, so I was the people who was in the program when it went on moratorium. So forever indebted to Dr. Bentley Sassman. She came my senior year. And So actually we have
I do remember that.
some generational stuff happening here. Dr. Billy Sassman was my mentor, and then I was Alexa's mentor.
Oh, wow. So Becky,
Very
what brought you?
special.
Yes. What got you into interpreting, Becky?
Well, I thought sign language was cool, and I still do. And I didn't know anything about interpreting. I went to a deaf awareness day at the Indiana Mall. I'm from Western Pennsylvania. And I was going to go like test to be a teacher until I went to the table of a rival university. And they said, we have interpreting, come to us instead. And I did. So I did not graduate from Bloomsburg. I went to a different school. But thankfully I ended up here and I fell in love with it. You never have the same day twice. I meet people I would never have met before. And I'm also funny in 2 languages. So I really like that part too.
Oh, wow. So there's always a connection. Everybody has a connection here in some way.
That is true. Becky is funny in 2 languages.
Okay, so I did have a question actually from the audience that I wanted to make sure we did answer. It was actually a question that was pertaining to minors. Would a person who minors still be qualified to interpret, or would they need something additional?
No, the minor just teaches the language. It doesn't teach the interpreting skills. So you could become fluent in the language, but interpreting is a different skill than signing. And I think the alum can tell you about how when they went from just signing to then switching over to interpreting, it was a whole different game. Because even though, yeah, you think, oh, just because I can sign, I can interpret, it's not the case. It takes very different skill sets to do that.
Okay, so then it would be important for somebody to major in ASL.
Correct. And also if you live in Pennsylvania, our state law related to interpreting says you have to have a degree in interpreting to work as an interpreter in Pennsylvania. So that's something that people think, well, I could just minor in ASL and then interpret. Not in the state of Pennsylvania, you can't.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So we have a few more questions. We have a time for a few more questions. Now for Gabby and Alexa, favorite class, why? Alexa, go first.
This was a tough one. I was thinking about it and I know I can't say all of them. This is hard. This is so hard. All right, I'll give you my top 3. I would definitely say translation because that was just so much fun. We had a blast with Dr. Sassman. I have never laughed so hard in my entire life. It was just so much fun. And that's one of those classes where you think you know how to interpret and you walk in and you're like, oh, no, I don't. And you're like, oh, okay, this is going to be hard, but worth it. So I love translation. So much fun. My second favorite, I would definitely, well, my top 3 would be topics in interpreting. So we already covered that a little bit. We basically learn a little bit about a lot, and it's so applicable to this day. I can remember conversations that we had and, discussions that we had and in-class practices that we had during that class, and it was just amazing. And then last but not least, I loved practicum seminar. So practicum seminar is the class you take right before you enter your practicum. Is that how it's still set up, I think?
Now you take it while you're on your practicum. Mm-hmm.
So you take it while you're on your practicum, and it is super beneficial. You are learning just basically, okay, how do I go from a student to an emerging interpreter, and just bridging that gap. It's phenomenal. I love that class. So yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Gabby.
welcome.
I'm trying to think. I know I really did enjoy, I forgot the actual name of the class. It was like gestures and communication.
Visual gestures
of communication. That was a lot of fun because it's not, yes, it's gestures, but it's showing you how to say something in sign language with using more than just the vocabulary, you know? So that was a lot of fun, and I still do it to this day. Like if someone's still like, I don't know what you're saying, I'm like, all right, just like, I'm going to try to figure out how to, you know, make this clear. And it really does help. That class definitely showed you how to do that. And then translation was with Tess. It was, what a time. It was so much fun. We had this like one assignment that the whole class would continue to talk about like till graduation. It was like the first assignment that we had. It was like, okay, we don't know what we're doing. Like we thought that we know what we're doing, but we don't know what we're doing. And it was just a lot of fun for sure. That's all of the ASL classes, you know,
Yep. I was just gonna
they're just, I don't know, like Alexa said, just all the classes are a lot of fun, and because you're learning, you're enjoying your time learning. But those are some of that stick out to me.
Yeah, I have to just piggyback off that with the ASL classes. I can honestly say being in ASL class was probably one, and my interpreting classes, but like the gen ed classes, I'd be like staring at the clock being like, oh my God, stop talking. I'm over this. ASL, all of a sudden it's like, it's over. It's like, wait, we just started. What the heck? Like time just like flew by. We had so much fun. We learned so much. And I was like, no, keep going. Let's go.
Yeah.
So it was engaging.
Yes, very.
Definitely.
Oh, perfect.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Don't look away. Eyes on the camera.
Yeah.
So I do have another question from the audience. So if a student wants to teach elementary education and sign language within elementary education, would the major be enough through the education department, or would they need to be certified at that point?
So I'm not sure if they mean they're going to be an ASL teacher at elementary, which typically doesn't happen, or if they mean they want to be a teacher of the deaf for elementary age children. I'm not 100% sure what's being asked with that question. So you wouldn't major in ASL English interpreting if you want to be a teacher. You would need to major in either education of the deaf and hard of hearing, or you could do early childhood with a minor in ASL. Education of the deaf and hard of hearing will get you the degree that you need in order to teach children who are deaf and hard of hearing.
Thank you. I think that seems to be what the question was. Now,
Also be an ASL specialist.
okay.
That's another degree altogether.
Okay.
That just focuses on teaching ASL.
Okay.
So again, asking for clarity on that question, whether they're teaching deaf children or just teaching hearing children ASL, there is a degree specific for being an instructor of ASL. A lot of times it's better to have a native ASL user be an ASL teacher as opposed to someone who has learned it as a second language, because it's always better to learn from a native language user. So it's better to have native people major in an ASL specialist degree.
Okay. Now, do you see a lot of double majors in interpreting? And then how does that work when both majors are have practicums in them?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Okay.
Our major is pretty rigorous with the requirements that our students have to take. So typically students can't double major, but they can major and have a minor. So we do recommend the major and having a minor. We do have some students who do double major, but those are students that are here for 5 years to complete both of the major and the minor, or sorry, the two majors. Usually, I can't think of one that started here as a freshman that finished 2 degrees. So again, just the rigorous nature of this major and other majors just doesn't allow a combination of a dual major.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to ask about 2 more questions.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh, one more. Oh, sorry.
Comment. I just wanted to add a point of clarification. There's also course sequencing that you need to keep in mind when you're planning. ASL, you need to take sequentially, ASL 1 through 6. And certain courses are only offered during certain years and certain semesters. So there can't be a lapse in sequence as well. If you take a course in a particular fall semester, you need to continue to progress in that sequence the following spring. You wouldn't be able to take the following spring off. It is sequential.
I do want to just make one corrective statement to what I said. We have had students who have double majored in French or Spanish, but they took that in high school, so they tested out of levels. So if you had taken like a foreign language, a spoken language in high school, and then you test out of like the first 2 levels, we have had students who have done a double major with interpreting, ASL English interpreting and French, or ASL interpreting and Spanish, but it's because they had that language in high school and were able to test out of some of the classes coming into college. But those are the only ones that they could finish on time, and it was because they already had the high school experience that they brought in.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that question. Very helpful, I'm sure, to everybody in the audience. So I do have 2 more questions. That's all we have time for. It's been a great session though. This is fantastic. So alumni, Gabby, Alexa, as far as career goals, what do you have in the future? What are you thinking you want to do, either end goal or, you know, transition into after this? Gabby, what's next for you?
Yeah, so I'm still actually right now I feel complete as my 1 year approaching after graduation, if that makes sense. Like I have 5 agencies I'm working with and a few schools. So I feel like, you know, coming out of a year after graduation, I feel like, okay, I'm getting into the hang of it. I'm definitely still clueless in many aspects, but I feel like I'm getting in the hang of it now. And so at the end of graduation, or sorry, I think May of 2020, we took the written part of the certification. And so that's all done, passed. And so I am planning at the end of this year to take the performance to complete my certification. So that's one goal.
Fantastic.
Thank you, for this year. And for the future, you know, that's still really up in the air because I have 2 really big interests of mine. I love interpreting and I love sign language. And in the future, maybe 5 or 10 years from now, if I continue and get the training, I do want to go into legal interpreting. But there is another pull to go back to school for possibly a law degree. Like I am very all over the place, but as right now I am content and I love what I do. But yeah, I'm just a go-getter who just wants to keep on going. Yeah.
Goal-getter.
Yeah. So sometimes it's a good and bad, but that's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you. So it definitely leads into different pathways. This is great.
Yeah.
Alexa, what do you have in store for the future?
Oof, love this question.
Mhm.
No, it's always a good question. So when I graduated from Bloomsburg back in 2016, I kind of gave myself a 5-year plan, and well, I'm now approaching that. I'm at that 5-year mark. So that's really fun. So my first goal was when I graduated was to take the EIPA, the Educational Interpreter Performance Assessment. And I have now successfully done that. I've taken it and I am able to work in the state of Pennsylvania as well as the state of New Jersey. So that was one goal that I had that I was able to accomplish. And like Gabby, I've also taken the NIC written exam, which is the first portion of the national certification. And I am declaring it right now. I will be a nationally certified interpreter of the year of 2021. It's going to happen. You heard it here first. So I will be taking that test this year. So be on the lookout for that great news.
You know, that's just been recorded, so
Yeah.
you're gonna have to do that now. Okay.
That's your goal. You have to just say it. You have to say it loud and proud. So
That's right. Put it into the universe.
Yeah. So that is my goal, is to become a nationally certified interpreter.
Awesome. Awesome. So this is kind of a two-part question. I'm sorry.
Can I add something before you ask?
Yes, absolutely.
Because as part of the graduation requirements, they need to pass a written exam. And then there's a performance component to that. And to be able to pass that performance component within your 10 years after graduation is really something to be acknowledged, because it's difficult.
Perfect. Thank you.
So that RID certification, like I said, they take that written test their senior year, but they're not actually certified until they pass the performance. So that is typically a goal of our students.
So, and they get, I'm certain they probably get a lot of prep at BU in order to prepare for those examinations.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
For the written test, we have a 100% pass rate after retake. So we have like a 92% pass rate the first time, and then after retake we have 100%. So we have a few students who have to retake, but the majority of the students pass it. Our passing rate is above the national average passing rate for the knowledge exam. And then the performance exam, RID says you need about 3 to 5 years of work experience in order to pass the performance, but it's not true, because we have some students who take it soon after graduation that pass. So it just kind of depends on, where you're at.
Well, and that speaks volumes to the program, definitely. So it definitely prepares students for their next steps. Now, kind of speaking of that, it sounds like all of you had to multitask while you were at BU and going through this major. What exactly, for you both, Alexa and Gabby, was a day in the life like for you? And what advice do you have for those going into the program so they are not having this panic moment? What would you tell them to do next? Alexa, please give us.
Just for clarification, you mean a day in the life of an interpreting student or a day in the life of an interpreter?
Just an American Sign Language student. What was your day-to-day like in this major?
Okay, so I have to just give the disclaimer where I am somebody that I over-involve myself. I'm just gonna put it out there. Gabby, I wasn't there at school with you, but I feel we're on the same page. There were times where, and this is not to scare anybody, there were times where I left my apartment at 7:30 in the morning for an 8 a.m. class, and I wasn't getting home until 9:30. So that's just, I just eat, breathe, sleep, like I just, ASL, interpreting, campus, Navy Hall, lab hours. I was involved in Signify, interpreting club, Image. I was the fundraising chair for my senior class. I was just very, very involved, because how I looked at it is that if I wasn't involved, I was missing out, and I didn't want to miss out. I had FOMO. I had the fear of missing out. I didn't want to miss anything. I didn't want to skip a beat. I wanted to take advantage of every opportunity that I could. So the day in the life of an interpreting student, typically you go on campus, you take your classes. Yes, you have your gen eds, then you have your interpreting and ASL classes, and then you're also in Navy Hall, out of class, you're working with your classmates on whether you're doing homework together, you're prepping for in-class practices that you're, freaking out for together. You meet up an hour before and you're like, all right, let's do this. We got this. Or we're meeting up for dinner on campus.
Room 19.
19, absolutely. Or honestly, after all said and done, then we go out to dinner on campus and we're doing silent dinners where we're just strictly just signing with each other just to get more practice in. So that's basically what my day looked like. And then I went to image practice after all of that is said and done. So I got home at like 10:30.
So what advice though would you give to a incoming freshman or even a transfer student?
Honestly, yeah, so I was a transfer student, but for both freshmen and for transfer students, be involved at BU. I always have to say that. Be you at BU. Don't lose sight of yourself. But definitely stay involved. Be involved because that's the only way that you're going to learn and grow, make mistakes and learn from them, and just take advantage of every opportunity that you can. Take advantage of the office hours that are provided by your teacher. Even though you may not think you have a question, you're going to have a question. See your professors, talk with them. That's how you're going to truly learn ASL, is by communicating with your professors and just taking advantage of the time that you have with them. I can go on and on. I'm sorry, cut me off.
No, it's great. Thank you. Thank you. Gabby, can you share with us your day in the life of American Sign Language?
Yeah, definitely. So Alexa was right. You wake up at like 7, or me, if I had an 8 a.m. class, I'm the person who's up by 6 doing my hair, doing my makeup, getting my books ready. I had 2 hours ready to like prep for the day, but I would have, my lunch ready, because if I wasn't going back to my apartment, I had my lunch ready. I had the day ready. And then I would go to class. And if you're not in class, you might be filming for your assignments. You might be looking back at your past assignments to give yourself feedback or to, analyze yourself. Or you might be prepping for your next class that might be a filming day. So then, if your professor gives you a topic that you might be interpreting, you might be searching up, okay, what is mortgages? What is that? And trying to figure out just what you're doing for the next class. Then I would go to the gym. I would go to the tutoring center for just sign language with the tutorer. And I was also an editor in the school's newspaper. And I was involved in image as well. And that was usually the end of my day. Image was like from 9 p.m. to like 10:30, or sometimes if you got lucky, it was like at 6 and you're like, ooh, it's early. But yeah, you would figure out, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm not going to get in bed until 1 o'clock. And then Tuesday and Thursday, like, is my good day. It's like, you would figure it out. But I would tell them to do it. Like, it's so worth it, because right now I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I feel like I want to go back to campus and just like be a student again. Like, it was just the best time. And you want to take advantage of all the opportunities you can get, be involved, because if not, I mean, you find other ways to fill your time. But like, if you're just in your dorm doing nothing, it's like, you're losing out on other things that you can do. And I still had time for my social life. Like, I would go to dinners and do everything.
I feel like I made it out to be like, but there is
no. Yeah, you definitely have time. Like, I made time for the gym. I made time to like hang out, and I'm like, okay, I might be able to go meet you at like Huskies. Like, all right, let's go. But for sure, just be involved. It's the best time.
I'd like to add on to that. Alexa and Gabby are go-getters, and so they would host a lot of events. We have something called a spaghetti dinner where they would invite the deaf community. They host this dinner, and so they were always willing to take on responsibilities and set up events, and that takes time. They were stellar students, and it's so good to hear that they enjoyed those experiences.
Can I add something in? So before we got on this call, I got a text message from an alumni, just like a little bit before we got on this call. And I just want to read part of the text, and she said I could, that she sent me. So she said, There's so many times when I'm on an assignment and something will happen that I vividly remember learning at Bloomsburg, and I'm always so grateful for the education there. So I just wanted to add that in, like you guys were talking about, just like taking advantage of that education and how that education then will benefit you when you're out there in the field. So getting involved, being with your classmates, learning from one another, learning from the classes, taking advantage of the opportunities that are out there, because you'll carry it with you into the field.
One last thing, because you just reminded me, sorry, but you're right, because I still keep in touch with all my classmates. And so sometimes we call each other like, oh, I just did this assignment like this in setting. And I'm like, we learned that. We actually learned something, man. Like what? We like retain this information, like what? And we realize how important everything that they were saying was true. And we're so lucky, for our professors and the curriculum that they had for us, really.
Mm-hmm. And I will attest to this, that I've done more than one of these departmental deep dives. And I feel like majority of the Bloomsburg students that I have spoken to, that is what they say: be involved, be active, and you will have a fantastic, phenomenal time. And your experience will be so memorable, and it will lead to so many great things. So I think that's the most important thing to remember. And, especially in ASL, be involved, be present, and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Because I think sometimes people are afraid to ask questions because they think they might not be the best question to ask. But if you don't know, you don't know. So who's going to tell you? You got to ask questions to find out the answer. But I do appreciate everybody today joining us. This was fantastic. I know we went a little bit over, but that's okay, because I loved it. This is wonderful. But just remember, if you're interested in applying to BU, go to our admissions page for sure. American Sign Language will be on there. Application for next year does not open until the beginning of August, so keep that in mind if you're interested. And if you want to learn more, contact the admissions office. We'll be able to help you answer any questions that you have about getting to BU. If you have a specific question, I'm sure our faculty extraordinaires will be able to give you some insight into American Sign Language a little further as well. But again, thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.